Hello, welcome back to the channel. They say the first step is admitting that you have a problem, and I'm aware that for a while now I've been rather more interested than is probably healthy in collecting torches, or as you Americans call them, flashlights. And I know where it started, of course, growing up on a housing estate right on the edge of a town, which is no longer right on the edge of that town. There were always walks around the golf course or adventures and things. And as a kid, there are a few things more exciting than heading out with your dad, shining your bright torches around and finding your way. Back then, the best you could probably get was the mag light. And you could get the Big Daddy version with up to 6 D-cell batteries and a xenon or a krypton bulb for extra brightness. Super tough and the best you could get. And those things pale in comparison to today's bright power LEDs and high energy density lithium batteries. I noticed Maglite started reselling them again on Amazon. I might pick one up just for nostalgia. See, I've got a problem. But after moving away from home, I always seemed to live in a town or a city or somewhere where you never really seemed to need a decent torch. There was the odd wide game with the scouts and things like that, but most of the time you get away with street lamps and your phone and a little one on your keyring for finding stuff you've dropped on the floor. But I tell you what, moving here to the countryside in the autumn, and now it's the winter, it's really quite funny. The first few weeks we went out for a walk in the evening and we thought, oh, yes, you need a torch. Every dog walker and every person going to their car or back from somewhere has a torch. Now, normal people don't get it, do they? They think a torch is just kind of useful. If you give one as a present, they'll say, oh, thanks, yeah, I needed a second. But we know better, don't we? A torch is not just useful. It's a statement about preparedness and intrepidation and adventure. Having a decent torch to hand is our way of saying, screw you, winter, we're going anyway. All of which is by introduction to say that a while ago now, Wuben sent me their excellent E7 flashlights to review for the channel. And then the other day, they asked me, well, they didn't ask me, they just sent their X4. And I've been using both of these for a while now, and I absolutely love them. They're very different. The E7 is very practical and very handy and powerful. And the X4, as I'll explain, is really something quite special and interesting, a little bit different. So stay tuned and I'll take you through these two excellent flashlights and let you know what I think. This is the E7 flashlight from Wuben, and it's a really convenient small size. It's about the size of my thumb or a little bit bigger, about 6 centimeters tall, 2 centimeters wide, and it has a mass of about 80 grams. It's not as compact as some models, which are so small you could literally put them in your jeans pocket and forget that they were there. But it is way more powerful than those, so it actually occupies a really interesting spot in the market. The shape is quite useful. It's a sort of hexagon or square, so it doesn't roll when you put it on the desk. And you can leave it on its side or stand it on its tail, just about stand it on its back. Or especially on carpet, you can actually put it at 45 degrees, shining up at a wall if you're working in a room and that's your only option. That could work. It has a really effective magnet on the bottom, which holds the light very well and could make for a variety of ways to mount the light. And you have a strong clip on the back that you could use to attach it to your clothes or belt or something if you needed a hands-free light. The battery inside is a standard size. It's an 18350, which is slightly unusual, not as common as the 18650. So it will be probably more expensive, but you can buy spares if you want to, so you can replace them without having to charge the battery. Wuben do make actually an extension tube, which I haven't got, which would sort of extend the light like that and allow you to use an 18650 cell, which could be useful. And they also sell a kit to turn this into a head torch, which I think would be very handy to have. The screw cap was done up really tight when I first got this. I had to use the pliers to undo it. And I noticed if you don't do it up just as tightly, the base doesn't line up. which doesn't matter, of course, it's only an aesthetic thing. I just thought it was a bit weird. This is waterproof to IP68, which means it's totally submersible and dust tight. The USB connector inside is waterproof, but if water gets into the USB connector, apparently some people have found it can have an odd effect switching the light on and off, because Wuben do sell a hands-free kit that you plug in and you wave your hand over a sensor to switch it on and off, and if water gets in there it thinks that you're operating it that way. But for rain, you know, I think this cover should be plenty. And they do actually give you spare O-rings for the O-ring seal on the battery compartment, which I think is really nice. USB-C, obviously, thank goodness, and you plug it in, the light goes red. After 1.5 hours from completely empty, it turns blue and it's ready. To operate the light, you have just the one button, as is often the case. You have to remember what the button does. Push it once to turn it on, and then push and hold to cycle through the power levels, low, medium, high, and so on. Low mode is apparently 5 lumens, and this should last for 60 hours. Or medium mode is a very useful 150 lumens, which should last for 4.5 hours. Or high is 400 lumens, that lasts for 1.3 hours. The headline figure of 1800 lumens turbo is if you double push the button, you get the turbo mode. But this only lasts for 1 minute. After a minute, it will then drop down to 800 lumens for another minute, and then drop down to the normal high mode and stay there. While I do, it is getting hot. I think that would burn my finger if I left it there for more than a few seconds. So you can see why the power is limited to a short time. If you triple press the button, you get the flashing mode, which is supposed to be for self-defense, but I don't think that's going to do anything. And another triple press gets the SOS mode. You can also lock the button so it doesn't turn on. If you press the button 4 times, it flashes to let you know, and then it's locked, which means it won't accidentally switch on in your bag, which is quite clever. To unlock it, obviously, you just push it 4 times again, and it switches on. Okay, how should you think of that headline figure of 1800 lumens? Well, the turbo mode only lasts for brief bursts, and otherwise you use this at a lower level. The battery life wouldn't be great even if you could run it continuously at 1800 lumens. So you shouldn't think of this as a search and rescue all night long hiking expedition light. It's not that. It's a useful medium level light, but which can go to a very high power level in a pinch, just to temporarily see something across the other end of a field, or search for something in a dark place. Who's it useful for? Well, it's smaller than it needs to be for a toolbox or a glove box or a desk drawer or something, or even a coat pocket if you're deliberately going out on a dark night. Its small size means it's meant to be carried, but it's not the smallest you can get, so it does have a decent power level. I'd say it's really useful for, say, a backpacker or a camper, because you want to keep things small and light, but you will occasionally need the bright power level, or a motorbike, a toolkit or bag or pocket, because it is small enough, and obviously we don't have much space, but occasionally you might need the power level. All right, let's head outside and have a look at what this thing can do. So here are the lights in action. This is the E7 on low power. Definitely enough to see what you're treading in and make sure you're not falling down a hole without ruining your night vision, but not particularly bright for looking around. And then stepping up to the medium, we can see quite a lot further. You could have this on for hours on a walk and see things around you quite clearly. Or if you need to see a bit further into the distance, here is the high power, which lights up a lot more and still lasts for quite a while. But for a short time, like a minute, if you want to search for something as far away as you possibly can, double push the button and you've got turbo, which is incredibly bright. I can see the tree very clearly. I could search for something small and tiny that I'd lost on the ground, and I could look across a field or try to see into the distance a little bit, or look across the other side of somewhere. Triple press the button and you get the flashing mode. Triple press again and you get the flashing. SOS. Moving on up then, here is the Wuben X4, which is more of a handheld size. I'd recommend it for a coat pocket or a glove box or a desk drawer. Again, maybe not mountain rescue or coast guard all night long in the dark territory. Wuben do sell those, and I shall start saving up my pocket money. But this is a very useful size and weight and battery life. It's a squarish sort of shape, which again means it doesn't roll off the table. It has an effective magnet on the bottom, but this light is longer and therefore doesn't sit as easily unless you've got a really chunky bit of metal. It can fall, or it can hang perfectly well from a bonnet or something and sit in various ways. But if you're not sticking it to a big chunk of metal, it's slightly less stable. It has this really good strong clip on the back, which you can use to hold it in your pocket or something, although it does have to point upwards in your pocket, which might not be what you want. Wuben did also send their bike mount kit, which you can use to turn this light into a removable bike light, which I think is really cool. And also this red diffuser cap, which goes on the end. I don't quite know what that would be for, except for a rear light on a bicycle, because the light doesn't flash as an emergency beacon or anything. Now the battery's removable again with this really nice button operated door, which I really like. And this is an 18650 replaceable battery, which is becoming increasingly common on electronic devices. So you could easily buy more of these and replace them without charging. Once again, it's IP68 rated, so it should be fully submersible and dustproof, which is excellent. The USB-C port is revealed by sliding this switch forwards, and it takes about 2.5 hours to charge from fully empty. The light comes from these 4 LEDs, which always come on together. You don't choose them, but you can see what they do if you cover them over. These 2 on the side make a very diffused, wide area beam. And then this sort of frosted one here at the end makes a slightly more focused beam. And then the high power lens, you can see that it's very well focused there as I move it. This one here produces a very bright central spotlight, but together they all come on and make a very useful beam, which is a wide angle flood plus a bright spot in the middle. Okay, what's so special about this torch? Well, where others, including the E7, use a single button and it just expects you to learn the sequence of long and short presses, this torch doesn't have 1 but 4 different controls, and they're all different. So the slide switch here selects modes. It also acts as a lock and covers and uncovers the charging port. The button here turns the light on and off. The knob just underneath, or dial, adjusts the power level. But there's also a tail switch on the back, which you can use like this. And fiddling with all these controls and different lighting modes available, this thing is practically a fidget toy. Even the battery cover is fun to play with in your pocket. Let's talk you through the different modes as efficiently as possible, because there's a lot here. First of all, lock mode with the switch slid back there means the light won't turn on. If we slide it all the way to the front, we get moonlight mode. And it's just a very low brightness light, the minimum brightness that you can just about see your way to the loo, or just see what you're stepping in as you walk without dazzling yourself. In moonlight mode, the tail switch just toggles the light on and off. Back one step is the main beam, and then we switch the light on with the button, and then we can adjust the brightness here with the dial. It isn't actually continuously variable. It looks like it because the light gradually fades up as you go past each step. If you turn it very gently, you can see there are, I think, 5 levels. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then it flashes at each end to let you know you've reached the maximum or minimum. It ranges from 5 lumens at the lowest end to 1500 lumens at the brightest, which is really bright. At full power, the battery should last 3 hours, and at minimum power, apparently 285 hours, so that's over 10 days. And when you're in main beam mode, the tail switch just flashes momentarily, the full 1500 lumens. And then back one more is the side light mode, which I would say is definitely the most complicated. First of all, if you push and hold the button, we get the battery indicator, blue for full or nearly full and red for running low. We switch it on with the button, and then we can change the brightness of the side light with the dial here. Again, it flashes at the top and bottom to let you know you've got there. This white light goes from 1 lumen at the minimum all the way up to 100 lumens at the maximum, which is a decently bright sort of wide area floodlight. It's not as much as some lights I've seen before, but it is useful because it's coming out of the side. So if you can magnetically stick it onto something and you want the floodlight sideways, it is quite handy. Apparently the battery will last 8 hours on full, and on the minimum here it's supposed to last 720 hours, which is 30 days, which is amazing. Okay, if we push and hold the button, we get to RGB mode. And these lights are a constant power, you can't change the brightness, but by turning the wheel, you can change the color. So we've got red, orangey yellow, yellowy green, cyan, magenta, red. From the colors, if you double push the button, they will flash, which of course is extremely useful. If you double push the button from off, you get these flashing light patterns. So we've got red and green. Double push again, we get red and yellow. Double push again, we get red and blue. Once again, in side light mode, the tail switch just operates the full beam. I think that's everything it does, but it's quite hard to be sure. Are all these light modes and colors useful? Well, I'm sure someone out there needs a flashing cyan light to... I really don't know. But it's definitely fun to fiddle with, as well as being a useful torch. It's an odd product because when I say it's like a fidget toy, that doesn't mean it's a novelty and it's not a good torch, because it really is. It's both. I honestly don't know whether Wuben was thinking that way when they designed this thing, but if not, they've certainly cottoned on now, because their latest model, the E8, is all about the fun and customization and fidget value. Any criticisms? I've noticed it is hard to feel in your pocket which end is which if you haven't looked at it. I find myself feeling for the lens there and then turning it over to find the button, which slows you down just a little bit. I also noticed you can't use the tail switch to flash Morse code, which is what I would have assumed it was for, because if you go too quickly, it operates the strobe mode, which I just don't find useful. I wish you could just... No, I wish you could use... you can do it if you go slowly enough. But that could be more useful. Okay, let's head back outside and see the X4 in action. Right, here is the X4 in the moonlight setting, right at the front there, the lowest power. A bit dimmer than the E7, and it will last for much longer. And then switching over to the main beam. It's only actually got about 6 settings, it's not really continuous, so turning it up to level 2. And level 3. Level 4, only a little bit brighter. Then 5. And 6, flashing to let you know you've reached the top. And that is really bright for a small torch. I'm looking across at those trees in the distance, way beyond this road, to see what that flapping was. And it'll go at this bright level for a minute or 90 seconds or something before dropping back down to the next level. And here's the side light on full brightness. It's not that bright compared to the main beam, but in a smaller area as a sort of a wide diffused light, it's quite handy. This is the brightest setting. By switching over to the colours, we can scroll through. And I still don't know what this is for, but it is fun. While switching on with a double press, we get the flashing. Red and yellow, or red and blue, or red and green. Well, thanks for watching another video. If either of these interest you, I'll put an affiliate link in the description. Enjoy your adventures, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.